you're a kid. Ghost in my house. There's a ghost in my house. Oh my god. No, it's my mask just fell. It falls all the time.
Didn't I make you laugh? Didn't I make you smile?
Hi friends, it's Rory, and today is the first video I'm gonna do in a series. So this is my throwback reviews, TBRs for short. Wow, I can't believe I'm this much of a nerd. Listen, I was trying to think of a name for this series, and it's a series where I'm going to be reading books that I really loved when I was younger, like ones that I haven't read in 7 years at least, and I'm gonna be reviewing them as I am now at 26 as a much more critical reader, and just kind of like seeing if I still love them as much as when I was younger, seeing if I think I would want my young nieces and nephews, but mostly my niece Nello, who's at the age where she's actually reading, where I would want them to read the book. And yeah, so this is the first one, but I was trying to think of a name for this series, and the only one that I could think of when I first came up with the idea, which, pause, I have no idea if someone's already been, doing a series like this. I'm sure that they have. This is probably in no way like an original idea. If I've tried to like look and see if there are series like this, but I haven't found one specifically. So I have no one to credit if someone's already tried this idea, but if someone has been doing this idea, please let me know in the comments below. I will definitely watch their videos because I think this idea is so cool. But yeah, so when I was trying to think of like a name for the series, the only thing I could think of was Nostalgia Critic, which I was like, that's a YouTube series, I'm not gonna do that. But then suddenly like Throwback Review came into my head and I laughed for 5 minutes. I thought it was hilarious for no reason at all. So that's what we're gonna call this series. It's Throwback Reviews, TBRs for short. I hate myself. So the first one, and the ones that really made me have this idea, as a young 7 to like 13-year-old, I was in love with Magic Tree House books. Specifically, the 3 that I'm going to talk about today were my absolute favorites. And that was Tonight on the Titanic, Twisters on Tuesday, and Earthquakes in the Early Morning. I think I read those books individually 100 times between 7 to 13. And so I was like, these need to be the first ones that I read. So I'm gonna go in order of publication, but it also happens to be my least favorite to my most favorite that way. So the first one is Tonight on the Titanic. Just a bit of backstory about me. I am a history major. I've mentioned it in a couple of my other videos, specifically my sewing video, that I was a history major. What happens in this one is it's the beginning. If you read Magic Tree House, you know that it's the beginning of what I lovingly call the dog series, where there is a dog that's under a spell, and Jack and Annie's goal is to get specific things in order to break the spell. And in Tonight on the Titanic, the thing that they need to get is a gift from a lost ship. So here are my notes. I forgot how fast, or I didn't realize when I was younger how fast these books go. Like, as I was listening, I realized that the guy was only really reading for like 30 minutes at a time. And I remember spending a long time reading these books. So at first that was really, really weird, because when you're a kid, you don't have, you know, the reading skills that you have as an adult. And so it takes longer. And that's why it felt so much longer when I was younger. But yeah, they were really, really fast. Another thing is I forgot how much I love Jack. Jack is a baby. He's my baby. I love him. Like, I also really like Annie, but like Jack, great character. I know I only read 3, but I also remember like him being my favorite when I was 12, so it's fine. These books are really funny if you know what's going on in them. Like, naturally as an adult, I know what the Titanic is. When I was younger, I didn't know, you know, what the Titanic was, what it meant. You know, I didn't really understand. The only thing I understood was that there was a really boring movie that they made us watch about it. And the Magic Tree House. And so it's really funny things that happen. Like, there's one, when they get there, Jack, you know, he has the book that has information about the place that they're going to be, like the book that they use to get to where they're going. And it talks about how the Titanic is unsinkable. And he just goes, oh, it's good the ship is unsinkable. And that's so funny. As an adult who understands what's going on, it's really funny. Along with that, a lot of this book is honestly high-key terrifying. Like, even me as a 26-year-old, I was scared. Like, there's parts, like, I'm gonna spoil these books. They've been out for forever. Like, sorry if you don't want to be spoiled, don't watch this video, no offense. But there's a part when Annie gets put on a lifeboat and she is being rowed, like taken down, that honestly is high-key scary. And I knew that like she got back, but like still in that moment I was like, oof, that's real scary. And there's also a part where the Magic Tree House just like completely disappears, and you think that these 2 kids are gonna be stuck on the sinking ship, and just everything's fine. It's a children's book, but for a moment it's really scary. A complaint that I have about this book is that time seems to move really fast. And like, I can definitely say that when I was younger I didn't notice so much, but now I do know like the significance of time. And like, the ship sank in, you know, a little under 3 hours. And they get there right as it hits the iceberg, and then they leave right as it's sinking. But with how long that takes and how short the book is, it felt like things were just really going too fast. As an adult, you know, when you're a kid, it doesn't really matter because you're not really paying attention, but just as an adult, I noticed that. And I think like a way, like I'm telling a famous author how she could make her books better, but I think a way that it could have been better if like, you know, the time it was taking was mentioned. Like, there's a part where they're going down to the 3rd class decks, and realistically I know that the Titanic is a large ship, and so it would have taken a long time. So if they said something like it took forever to go down the stairs, it would have made that feel better for me. But at the same time, 12-year-olds don't care about the time it took to get through this ginormous ship. I did end up liking it a little bit less than I liked it as a child, but I still thought it was really, really good. And then next was Twister on Tuesday. But yeah, so this one and then the next one, Earthquakes in Early Morning, happened during the, they're tasked with getting different types of knowledge that they can then use to save Camelot. And this one, they have to get something to learn. So they go to a school, and it gets basically destroyed by a twister. That's the whole plot of this very short book. But once again, it felt very fast. And that's really a criticism I have for the first two, not so much the third one. The third one is a little bit better about that. The only thing really that I have to say about Twisters on Tuesday is that I like the characters and I kind of wish that I knew more about them. Like, I believe his name is Jeb, but the mean boy in the school, the one who has to walk like 5 miles to school and just like wants to learn but feels like he's too old to learn at this point. I love that character, and he's never mentioned again. At least not that I know. He may be mentioned in a one-off. Like they do mention other people they have met on their journey. Like they do it in this one because they talk about an Indian friend that they have that they met in an earlier series. The only note I have on Twisters on Tuesday is that as someone who did go through college, especially someone who went through a history degree in college where I had to write a lot of notes, Jack's notes made me really laugh because like they're so simple, but he knows what they mean. Like he legitimately reads a section where it's like, you know, wagons with white coverings used to go through and they were called schooners, and it has like this entire paragraph of like this thing, and he just writes like white wagons equals schooners. And as an adult who did go through college, I know I keep saying I went through college, but like as an adult who had to write notes consistently, if I wrote white covered wagons equals schooners, I would have no idea what that meant, and so I found that very funny. Okay, and then the next one is Earthquakes in the Early Mornings, which is my #1 favorite Magic Treehouse book. And I still love it as a 26-year-old. I adore it. So this one is the one that happens right after Twisters on Tuesday. This one they need to find is something to lend. And they go to San Francisco on the day of the Great San Francisco earthquake. It was really in this book, like all of the books I was thinking, wow, the illustrations are beautiful, but this one was just something like chef's kiss about how gorgeous the illustrations were. That's something that's a strength throughout all of them, is that the pictures are really beautiful. This one I feel as a someone who has a backing in history, this one is the one that I feel teaches kids history in the best way. Like this book taught a lot about what happened that day, but it wasn't just like, not so much like, oh, this is something that happened. This one really went in and talked about the tragedies of that day, but it also talked about like the little people, which is something that like the other ones all have. It's like, oh, these are like the normal people that were going on. Like the Titanic one, there's, you know, a girl and her brother who they help survive the Titanic, and they're just like, you know, little third class people, like someone who you would have no idea about in the long run. But this one talked about like a newspaper writer who was a woman, and her, you know, her camera guy, and this family who they lost their house because of the fires that happened on that day. And I just, as someone who is into history, specifically social history, which is kind of like what my niche is a little bit, I really appreciated that. Annie sort of annoyed me in this one. Like, she cannot seem to stop spoiling the future in this book, and that was just like, come on, girl. This is the 24th, because this is number 24 in the series. This is the 24th adventure that you've been on, and you're telling me that you still are spoiling the future? Girl. But also, she's like, you know, 8, so This is also one where it's the end of a riddle or like an adventure set that they have, and they go to Camelot and they meet King Arthur for the first time. And I remember that in my young age just being like, oh my gosh, it's King Arthur. Jack being like so dumbfounded and amazed that he just met King Arthur. Same, dude, same. And in my personal opinion, it's the best Magic Tree House book of all time, and you can fight me on that. I have a strong, hard opinion on this. Earthquakes in the Early Morning is the best Magic Tree House book. So yeah, that's it. Those are the 3 books. So I think I'm gonna put a poll on my Twitter. So if you want to follow my Twitter, it's always linked down in the description, and I'll just let you guys pick which one that I do. So yeah, as always, there is a link in the description where you can go register to vote. If you're of the voting age, let your voice be heard in your local, state, and federal elections. I've been doing this for a month. You'd think I'd be better at it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye for now, guys.